Khabib Nurmagomedov left quite a legacy in the fighting world, solidifying with his final win before opting for retirement. It's been 2 years, but we still haven't gotten over it. And why should we? He was the best of the best. Just because he retired doesn't mean we don't get to hear from him. In this video, we'll discuss the fighter's thoughts on his final win and what it's like to be a mentor. First up, let's go back to his showdown in the UFC. Let's rewind for 2 years. It's 2020, the year of massive change. And as things change all around us with uncertainty brewing left and right, this boxer is about to shake UFC. But he has to do it in style. He has to go as the undefeated 155-pound champion, and he does. His final victory over Justin Gaethje is a testament to the fighter's spirit and skill. What are you even doing here if you haven't watched that fight? The second round submission was everything. The match played out like it did, ending with Khabib choking Justin unconscious in the second round and successfully keeping his UFC lightweight title. The American player put up quite the fight with leg kicks, but he succumbed to that final triangle choke. Nurmagomedov, on the other hand, just cemented his title for being the most dominant MMA fighter of all time. A 29-0 unbeaten record is no joke, and he understands the gravity of it all too. Defeating Gaethje was a bittersweet moment for the 32-year-old, who collapsed in the center of the octagon and broke down in tears after winning. He pulled himself together, took off his gloves, and said a line that we won't forget. "This is my last fight in the UFC." Safe to say, Khabib wasn't the only one sobbing. We were right in there with him. It was the end of an era. 2020 hadn't been kind to the fighter, who lost his father and coach in July due to COVID-19. Accepting that final fight was also a decision he made carefully, after days of consideration and discussions with his mother. Coming up, Khabib officially retired the following day. It came from the UFC president Dana White, who said that Nurmagomedov was 100% officially retired from MMA. There's no chance of a comeback here. You see, the death changed him and his outlook on the game. Losing his coach, mentor, and father would hit him hard. As a result, the 32-year-old has also promised his mother that he would never step back into the octagon that was once his most beloved battlefield, a battlefield where he'd never lose. In true UFC fashion, Dana refused to give up without a fight. There was always some hope of convincing him to return. Pitches were made through the media. The two were also seen meeting together and discussing prospects. We dared ourselves to hope some more, but to no avail. Next, was it possible for him to come back? Of course, there was a lot of speculation on social media as well. We're not going to lie. All of us were hoping for something to work out. This couldn't just be the end, right? We imagined many possible fights. A rematch with Conor McGregor? Perhaps a clash with fellow UFC legend George St. Pierre. The possibilities were endless, but none of that happened. And this statement of official retirement was a confirmation of just that. Khabib confirmed it later too in a heartfelt Instagram post. He thanked White and the UFC for all they've done for him and his family, and was grateful for having been allowed to prove himself and change his life. Khabib also mentioned that he'd never forget what Dana has done for him and his family. He added, "My father did not forget, and my sons will remember you." His final words thanked his partners, team, and of course, the fans. He leaves a legacy of notable wins over McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and Gaethje. The last of these people was his final win, something that Khabib still hasn't forgotten. Now for the big one, Nurmagomedov looks back on his final fight. Just because he's retired doesn't mean he's disappeared from the fighting world. We're always dying to get our hands on any news about the guy, and his recent appearance on the Wahed podcast gave us just that. He looked back on his final play in the UFC and recalled how he felt. It turns out that his opponent was jet-lagged during the mind-blowing win, or at least that's what he thought. And it makes sense too. Justin arrived at the Fight Island venue just a week before the scheduled event, and that 1 week saw him completing his final media duties and, of course, the essential thing, weighing in. 1 week is barely enough to adjust to a newer time zone, right? Moving on, the two opponents exchanged words during the fight. Khabib suggests that the two rivals were even talking about the exhaustion that he was facing during the UFC 254 contest. The legend was updated on when his opponent would come to the venue. He told him he would come on Saturday and fight next Saturday. Anyone in their right mind would know how that would mess things up. Khabib did too. He was positive that Justin was jet-lagged, but he didn't admit it. Nurmagomedov knew from the get-go that playing next Saturday would be terrible for his rival. If you've ever traveled such long distances, you'd know what we're talking about. And was Khabib wrong? Everyone saw how that match played out and how Justin lost. Don't get us wrong, Gaethje put up an excellent fight, but we wonder how things might have changed if he'd had a long waiting period leading up to the day. 2 weeks maybe. Who knows? Khabib might have lost his final fight if Justin had been in full form. Nurmagomedov has recently flown out to Abu Dhabi with Islam Makhachev. Yes, the Islam Makhachev, the same guy who's just competed in a successful title challenge against Charles Oliveira at UFC 280. In case you don't know, Islam is Khabib's protege, and he's learned much from him. The duo jetted out with the Dagestani Stars team many weeks before the fight to complete preparations and adjust to their surroundings, so they're over the jet lag. Ironically, Islam's rival followed the same approach as Gaethje for his shot at the vacant title. He arrived very near the match date, which was a probable factor in his submission defeat. Now, Bellator lightweight champion Pitbull also weighs in on Charles's loss. It's not just Nurmagomedov who's saying this. Bellator lightweight champion Patricky Pitbull echoes the same sentiments, saying that Charles missed a great opportunity by not arriving in the Middle East earlier. Islam did that, and look where that got him. Pitbull told reporters that the time zone difference would affect Charles and his training for the fight. He didn't give himself enough time to adapt to his new surroundings, and that's got to be bad for you. That said, Patricky doesn't think that that's the only reason he lost. It was just one of the factors, a minor one even. The champion said, as far as the technical aspects of the fight go, he was a little bit too passive. He said that Oliveira didn't show the same kind of passion that he had in his previous fights. He could easily escape the submission attempt, but he didn't even try, which is disappointing to see in a man of his caliber. As for Islam, it's only upwards from here. Pitbull thinks he will smash his next opponent, Alexander Volkanovski. He believes that the wrestling style would make a lot of difference in this fight, and Islam can do it all. He says Islam can do striking, wrestling, everything. He can do it. With a mentor like Nurmagomedov on his side, yes he can. He never had any doubts about that, and neither did Khabib. Finally, Khabib thinks Islam is the best fighter in the world right now. A true mentor believes in his proteges. Khabib does just that, and he looks forward to seeing his student prove it in his fight against Alexander. Nurmagomedov was elated to pass on his vacant lightweight title to Islam. What's better than your student getting your former title, right? Volkanovski weighed in as a backup and was called out by Makhachev's post-fight for a showdown in our beloved octagon. Alexander is currently ranked as UFC's #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Beating him means Islam can reach and dethrone him from that spot and claim it as his. He was very proud of his protege for that fight, which also showed in his interviews. He mentioned how the two had trained together for life. That's 22 years. And since the last few years, he'd begun to see the spark in Makhachev. He said, "I told you guys, Islam Makhachev is the best fighter." And he's not just talking about lightweight here. His student is in for the pound-for-pound #1 fighter title. Charles was #2. Islam beat him. Who's to say Alexander can't be defeated too? Khabib, for one, is pretty confident that they're going to finish that guy. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Islam can beat Alexander? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.